All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another fight breakdown. This weekend, the IBF heavyweight title goes up for grabs as we see Moses Itauma take on Filip Hrgovic. A massive opportunity for Moses Itauma to be the youngest heavyweight world champion since Mike Tyson. He's not going to quite break it, but becoming a heavyweight world champion at the age of 21 is still one hell of an achievement. But we're going to break this fight down and really with the precipice of how can Filip Hrgovic win this fight? Because I think for many people, all right, the media, the boxing fans, the casuals, the bookies, Moses Itauma is expected to go in and win this fight. And for a lot of people, Moses Itauma is expected to go into this fight and not only win, but knock out Filip Hrgovic. And for me, it is not that simple. It is not that easy. And Filip Hrgovic is leaps and bounds above any competition that Moses Itauma has faced in his professional career. He's much, much better than Jermaine Franklin, much, much better than Mike Balogun, what Dillian Whyte threw up on the night. Filip Hrgovic is leaps and bounds above it. And for Filip Hrgovic, there is a lot of hunger and motivation. He believes that he is more deserving of this world title shot, that he has actually earned this world title shot compared to Moses Itauma, who has been handed this world title shot. And there's really no pressure on Filip Hrgovic, and it's probably the right place to start, because when you break this fight down and you say, how is this fight won or lost by both fighters? Well, I think a lot of it can be, down to how Moses Itauma handles this pressure. Don't get it wrong. There's a lot of pressure on Moses Itauma to win this fight. There's a lot of pressure on Moses Itauma to carry heavyweight boxing for the next 10 years. That's a lot to put on the shoulders of a 21-year-old kid. And when you come into this fight, Moses Itauma, let's not forget, coming into this was supposed to be Moses Itauma's step up, all right, against Filip Hrgovic before the world title shot. All right, this was supposed to be the step up, world title shot next. This is now the step up in competition, which isn't just a step up, it's almost a fucking leap up. Like, Filip Hrgovic is much, much better than the competition Moses Itauma has faced. And now you've added the added pressure of you've got to beat the best fighter you've fought in your professional career. And it's for this world title that everybody expects you to win, and not only win, but hold for 5 to 10 years. So there's a lot of pressure on Moses Itauma. Coming into this fight, it's not Filip Hrgovic versus Moses Itauma, it's Moses Itauma's fight. If Moses Itauma wins, it's Moses Itauma does what he needs to do and he's going to carry British boxing. If he loses, then it's Moses Itauma, the biggest letdown in British boxing. Whether that's right, whether that's wrong, unfortunately, that's the game he's in. That's the boxing world. And I can tell you right now that Moses Itauma loses this weekend and a lot of people are going to turn on the kid, which is unfortunate. I do feel bad for him, but fortunately, like I said, that is the game that we're in. And for Moses Itauma, lots and lots of pressure on this fight. And how does he handle it against a step up in competition? How does Filip Hrgovic win this fight? Because at the end of the day, that's the question that everybody's asking. How does Filip Hrgovic win this fight? All right, if Moses Itauma does handle the pressure and he's ready to go, how does Filip Hrgovic win this fight? And for me, there's a few ways to victory for Filip Hrgovic. Number one, Filip Hrgovic does have a height and reach advantage in this fight, which will be effective with the fight style that Filip Hrgovic has. Filip Hrgovic stands 6'6" compared to the 6'4.5" of Moses Itauma, but the 208 centimeter reach advantage compared to 201 centimeters of Moses Itauma is really, for me, the standout thing. The weights are very similar. Filip Hrgovic averages in the mid 240s. For Moses Itauma, last time out, 242 pounds against Jermaine Franklin, but we've seen a career high of 254 against Mike Balogun and a career low of 236 against Istvan Bernath. So there's been a few highs and lows, but I think the weight will be very, very similar coming into this fight. It is really that height and that reach advantage to Filip Hrgovic, and how can he use that effectively? Well, for Filip Hrgovic, the height and the reach advantage works perfectly for his fight style. There is nothing flashy, there is nothing dynamic, there is nothing extraordinary about the way that Filip Hrgovic fights, which sounds disrespectful, but it's not. He's very, very technically sound and disciplined, and he's very, very good at one thing, and that one thing is the 1-2. It is that lead jab followed by that big right hand, and he lands it consistently in every single one of his fight. He used it very, very effectively, especially early against Daniel Dubois. All right, he's used it well in fights against Adelaide, against Joe Joyce. In every single fight, you can see this 1-2 worked effectively from Filip Hrgovic, and I think he's got an opportunity in this fight to use it. Now, when I look at this fight and I think of how it's going to go, I expect Moses Itauma to be the guy on the front foot. So for Filip Hrgovic, he won't be able to use it offensively for the early rounds, but how can he use it to counter against Moses Itauma? And when you look at Moses Itauma, it is hard to find holes in his game because Moses Itauma really hasn't been tested up until this point. The biggest test has been going 5 rounds against Jermaine Franklin. 5 rounds that pretty much every single one of them Moses Itauma won. You include some knockdowns in there, and it was convincing from Moses Itauma, but it's the longest fight that we've seen. And when you look at Moses Itauma and some of the things that he does do wrong in his game, and one thing we've noticed is when Moses Itauma, obviously a southpaw, jabs with his right hand, a lot of the time he drops his left hand for no other reason than he's just putting it in a position to throw it after the jab. But after every single jab almost, you see that left hand drop. And that's the opportunity for Hrgovic to counter over the jab with his right hand. All right, step out of the way of the right jab and bang over the top and try and catch that left hand out of place. The other thing he can do is use his reach advantage to jab over the jab hand of Moses Itauma. Keep that jab away from him. And the other thing I think it would be very, very wise from Filip Hrgovic in this fight is it's something we don't typically associate with Filip Hrgovic, but I think it's something that he needs to adopt in this fight. When you look at Moses Itauma and the skill set that he possesses, we know how good he is at throwing combinations. We know how powerful he is, all right? But it's the movement and it's the speed of Moses Itauma that I think is going to be the biggest problem for Filip Hrgovic coming into this fight. Moses Itauma is very, very good at getting in and out of the pocket quick. He's very, very good at moving his head as well. So when you're up against an opponent that is that quick, it can sometimes be hard to track down that head. So for Filip Hrgovic, I think to use stiff jabs and stiff right hands to the body, whilst at range, would be effective as well. Because Moses Itauma, I do believe, will want to be the guy on the front foot. He will be the one wanting to push Filip Hrgovic. So he's going to have to first get in close enough to get past the jab of Filip Hrgovic. So to use that jab effectively, not only to the head, but to the body, I think will pay dividends in the end of this fight. And it'll also test the body of Moses Itauma. Over the course of a 12-round fight, we haven't seen Moses Itauma go 12 rounds. You start laying in the body work early, maybe Moses Itauma does slow in the second half of the fight. We're going to have to wait and see. It'll all be in the unknown until we see this weekend. Now, for Filip Hrgovic, when you talk about his fight style, he's got a very, very comprehensive one too. The other thing that I think he can use effectively is his left hand. I think countering with his left hand will be effective as well. When you watch Moses Itauma against Jermaine Franklin, you saw a few times that Moses Itauma overcommits with the left hand. Jermaine Franklin steps back, and Moses Itauma actually goes over the front foot and almost sort of falls over with that left hand, misses by an absolute mile. This is almost an opportunity for Filip Hrgovic to once again use that height, use that reach advantage to sway back out of the reach of Moses Itauma, but still be in range to lean back forward and use that left hook effectively to hit Moses Itauma as he falls over the front foot. And we've seen Filip Hrgovic in a few fights use that left hook. All right, he used it quite a few times against Joe Joyce, and I think it will be an effective weapon to use to try and counter Moses Itauma. And it'll be off these counters, I do believe that Filip Hrgovic will be able to launch offense of his own. I don't think Filip Hrgovic will be able to walk down Moses Itauma, especially not only in this fight. But if he's able to land some counter right hands and push Moses Itauma back, that'll be when Filip Hrgovic can start doing the work of his own, and that is setting up that right hand using his effective jab, doubling up the jab, going upstairs, going downstairs, and ultimately we've seen in plenty of his fights, he knows exactly how to land that right hand, and that's not a problem. It'll be more about how can you get Moses Itauma going backwards so you can do what you want to do. And even against that fight against Joe Joyce, we saw a few times that Filip Hrgovic was backed into a corner, but he was able to counter well, circle around Joe Joyce, and then launch attacks of his own. And that's what I think he can use effectively in this fight. Now, how do I realistically see this fight going? For me, the big breaker in this fight, and I think it does speak volumes about Moses Itauma. Moses Itauma's speed, I think, is the make or break in this fight. Moses Itauma, we know how powerful he is. We know how intelligent he is. For a 21-year-old kid, he is a very, very intelligent fighter. The way he sets up his combinations, the way he punches in bunches, the way he sets traps, the way he goes downstairs before almost always going upstairs. Every single time you see him go down to the body, you almost see the exact same punch thrown upstairs, and it tricks every single one of his opponent, and the traps are always set out, and he feints consistently, and majority of his opponents bite on those feints because they know of the speed and the power that he possesses. But for me, the biggest breaker in this fight is actually Moses Itauma's speed and his engine. Filip Hrgovic almost always tires after about 3 or 4 rounds, all right, and the second half of the fight is fought at a completely different pace than what Filip Hrgovic fights the opening few rounds. Filip Hrgovic is dynamic in those first few rounds, slows, and then it starts to become a slugfest in the second half of the fight. And for Moses Itauma, with his youth, with his speed, with his power, it's going to be a problem for Filip Hrgovic to keep up any sort of pace and engine throughout this fight and keep up the rate that Moses Itauma possesses. And if you compare it directly to a fight, I think we could very well see a Moses Itauma performance this weekend that's almost reminiscent of the David Benavidez performance that we saw against Zurdo Ramirez. Zurdo Ramirez is not the same fighter as Filip Hrgovic, but I think you see the same flaws. I think Filip Hrgovic isn't a very, very quick fighter. And the thing that overwhelmed Zurdo Ramirez wasn't the power from David Benavidez, it was that speed. It was those quick combinations. And ultimately, when you're getting hit with 6 or 7 punches before you can throw one, that is a massive problem. And I believe Moses Itauma is going to be able to be that good to push Filip Hrgovic back, land those quick combinations, and I don't believe it will be a one-off punch that stops Filip Hrgovic. We haven't seen that in his career. It is the consistent punches being landed on Filip Hrgovic that will do it. It'll be the speed from Moses Itauma. It'll be going down to the body, hurting the body, opening up the head, and then landing 3 or 4 punches upstairs. And we've seen over the course of the career of Filip Hrgovic, especially recently, Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, David Adelaide, that Filip Hrgovic cuts very, very easily. He cuts very, very quick. He's very hard to stop. Not many people have stopped him, but the one stoppage in his career was from cuts. All right, at the end of the day, the one stoppage in his career was from cuts. The only time that we've probably seen him close to being stopped was that 8th round against David Adelaide. And if you look at that 8th round against David Adelaide, there is another massive, massive hole in Filip Hrgovic's game. And that is being caught with a big counter left hand. And what is Moses Itauma? A southpaw. So you could very easily see Moses Itauma land a big left hand like David Adelaide did. And unlike David Adelaide, I believe Moses Itauma, if he's got Filip Hrgovic hurt, the fight gets stopped. Because he is that smart, he's that intelligent, he knows where to throw his punches. David Adelaide had Filip Hrgovic hurt, and all he did was start throwing wild right and left hooks at the head of Filip Hrgovic. I believe that Moses Itauma hurts Filip Hrgovic. He goes downstairs, he goes upstairs, he pieces him apart, he uses an uppercut, and he stops Filip Hrgovic. At the end of the day, there is a reason that Moses Itauma is the heavy favorite in this fight, and I do agree with it. As much as I've said Filip Hrgovic has a chance in this fight, and it all, you know what? It's probably all dependent on the chin of Moses Itauma. At the end of the day, Filip Hrgovic wins this fight if Moses Itauma's chin doesn't hold up. Filip Hrgovic, for me, isn't a big hitter. He never has been. He's landed clean shots on plenty of fighters. Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, David Adelaide. And although he drops David Adelaide, he fails to stop any of these guys. He fails to stop Zhili Zhang. I don't believe Filip Hrgovic has the power in one punch to stop Moses Itauma unless Moses Itauma's chin doesn't hold up, which is a possibility coming into this fight. Up until this point, we haven't seen Moses Itauma get hit. Not once. Right? We've seen a few pot shots here and there. We've seen him stumble after a jab against Jermaine Franklin. But realistically, we have not seen a big punch landed on Moses Itauma. And I think in this first and second round, because I do believe Filip Hrgovic will be the guy that lands a punch on Moses Itauma. How does Moses Itauma respond to that punch? And I think that response will tell us a lot about how this fight goes. I think a response that looks, unaffected by the punch, this is Moses Itauma. He will win by a barnstormer. If this is a Moses Itauma that goes into his shell or wobbles or gets hurt, Filip Hrgovic could very well win this fight, if not stop Moses Itauma. But it is a lot dependent on the chin. And like I said, when you look at a guy like Moses Itauma that's been 5 rounds once, every other fight basically 1 or 2 rounds, there is a lot of unknown about how Moses Itauma responds to a fight where he is not on the front foot, where he is on the back foot, where he does get hurt, where he does get hit. A lot of unknown. I think Filip Hrgovic has a chance in this fight, providing he can land those shots early and hurt Moses Itauma. But ultimately, the way I see this fight going is Moses Itauma using those quick combinations, setting traps, going downstairs, going upstairs, doing all these great things that we've seen, using those speedy combinations, and that ultimately being the demise of Filip Hrgovic. I think Moses Itauma, I don't believe this fight gets stopped early. I believe Moses Itauma takes this into deep waters, and his engine, his gas tank, and the speed of his punches will overwhelm Filip Hrgovic late in the fight, and they'll probably stop Filip Hrgovic on his feet. I don't know whether Moses Itauma stops him, knocks him out. I think more so Filip Hrgovic gets stopped on his feet, overwhelmed by the amount of action and the power of Moses Itauma. Not enough power to KO him, but enough power for the ref to step in, or the towel to come in. That ultimately is my prediction for this fight. I think Moses Itauma gets a TKO victory in the 10th round. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think this fight's going to go? Do you give Filip Hrgovic any chance in this fight? And if so, what are those chances? How do you think his best way to win this fight is? For me, I think we've explored basically every route to victory for Filip Hrgovic. It's nothing extraordinary. It's not as though he's going to come in and throw this unbelievable 7-punch combination that Moses Itauma has never seen before. That's not for me how it goes. It is dependent on Moses Itauma handling the occasion, handling the power from Filip Hrgovic, and Filip Hrgovic ultimately being intelligent enough to counter off the mistakes of Moses Itauma. Guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm out of here. See yous.